Hey everybody, David Henry here from Learn Christmas Lighting, and in these videos I'm going to show you how to get started with Vixen. In particular, this is 3.5, it's early 2019, but chances are into the future a lot of this will still apply. So when you first start, if you're starting completely from scratch like we are here, you get this screen when you first start up. And the first place we're going to go to get started is Setup Display. Now, when we pull up this window, we've got two sides to it, okay? You kind of see three panes here. There's an elements side, and there's a controller side, and then there's this bit in the middle that tells you things. So I had created some things in here. Let me delete those out real quick to start from scratch. So when you're working with different types of lights, we're going to add them in here as elements. So they could be lip sync characters, icicles, starbursts, mega trees, generic number group, my favorite, pixel grid, or single items. So, for example, I can do a generic numbered group, and this is just any kind of pixel thing, and I can create. And I'm going to call this roof line, and the name and the prefix are really just, they're just there to help you. Whatever you want to call them, you can. Whatever makes the most sense for your house, do it. But on the item count, we want to put in our total number of pixels. So let's say I have 200 across my roof, and I'll press OK. Then I'll do it again. For example, I've got my columns, and I've actually got 282 on my columns. I know that for a fact. And then let's add in a pixel grid. So press plus. Now we can set which way the wiring is, horizontal or vertical. And some of the other ones like the mega tree that you can, the element types that you can add in here, they'll walk you through it just like this, where you can set up whatever you need to set up to make your particular pixel setup. So let's do, sure, a 20 by 32. I like vertical wiring. Press OK. And once you've done this, we can start going and programming lights. Now, if you want to work with the physical lights or you just don't want to configure it for later, then it's time to set up your controllers. For example, I use Streaming ACN, which is SACN E1.31, to control all my pixel controllers. So I'm going to add in a new controller. Add Excellent 4. It wants to know outputs here is how many total channels it can do. So this guy can do 680 times 4 channels, times 4 pixels rather, at 3 channels. So that's 680 times 4 times 3. We'll type that math out quick, and we get 8160. Perfect. So we'll press OK. And now we've got our 8160 outputs. So we could then go ahead, and I could literally, if I didn't care how they were patched into this controller, which I do care, but I could literally just go in. There's multiple ways to do this, but simply select all three of these. You can use Control, you can use Shift here. Select this controller over here, and then I'm going to be able to patch everything. Now, it's telling me here I'm getting a warning that's saying that, hey, your controller has more outputs than the lights you're patching. That's okay. The other way is not okay. If you have more lights than controllers, you're going to have a problem. So I'm going to press Patch Elements, and then those are all set up. Now, for some things, especially when you get into real life, you may want to go and patch individual things or some of these sub pieces. You may want to patch those by themselves. And one of the things you can do is, for example, select, like for example, on my columns, every other column reverses direction in the wiring. So I go in and I select every other column and I patch them. And then I select the other half and I reverse the order because those are the ones that are wired the other direction. Makes it a little simpler. Not totally required, but that's some of the kind of things you can think about as you're patching. So I'll press OK here. And then I want to set up my previews. So setting up previews is really simple. We'll just press Add New Preview. Select Vixen Display Preview, which is the only option. And voila, we've got a preview. We can press Configure here. That's the key. I'm going to make this full screen. I'm going to click right here on background and bring in a picture of my house. So So I've got a PNG file here. If you don't see your file type, just go to all files. It takes different image files, but it does default to JPEG. Pull that in. I'm just going to zoom with my scroll wheel up on my house. And then I'm going to dim this down with this slider because we want to see the lights, not the house. Awesome. So now I just sketch out my elements just like I made these. So I click on them. Then I go here to Smart Objects. Then I quickly just am able to sketch them out. So this is pixel-based objects right here, the Smart Objects is. And so let's say my roof line looks like this. And so what that does is, we'll press escape when we finish, is these are pixels, the Smart Objects, and the basic drawing are non-pixel objects. And so, for example, I just used a multi-string here, and that's going to be a multi-string of pixels. So I get a, oops. I can go back to select at any time to select my lights. We can see here when I click on roof line, it turns to pink, but then I go back to any of these others and it turns off of pink. It's a little messed up here because all the elements got thrown into that first item, but we'll get there in a minute. So then I can sketch out my other stuff. Say I go and sketch out my columns real quick again. Same thing. Just carefully and evenly sketch out my columns. The pixels aren't really distributed among them, but we can fix that later. Just kind of sketching out what I've got here. This isn't exactly how it lays out in real life, but it'll give you a good idea of how to program in Vixen. Pressing escape when you finish. Oops. Then going to select before you click anywhere else because it's going to keep creating items. But I'm just going to go and do this grid actually real quick. And I drag out my grid and it gives me the sizing that I chose when I patched it. Control Z undo always works as well. So I go back to select and then I can put this grid wherever I need to. I can always resize things, etc. Let's pretend it's over the carport. So now we've got those patched and there's a few settings we want to look at before we close this window. We could just close this window right now and start sequencing and everything would work great, but I want to go over a couple quick settings. So when I click on a collection of lights like this roof line, I now get here the light size, which if I need to see that bigger, I can just increase that number. In fact, I usually make my light size pretty big because I like to see things kind of fat here. But that's up to you, how you want it to look. So I can literally just click the items on the screen and look at the properties. Right here where it says linked elements, I can click this box and I can link my different strings here. So for example, what we did here was, I can see here, I've got my first 200 pixels right here on my pixel string. And here I've got 200 on my roof. So this is all connected because this is how we did it previously. But for this example, like I went ahead and in the display setup, I set up 200 on one string, but then I actually made 6 strings with my polyline here. And so what I want to do is just even this out. So I'm just going to make them each 25. Probably not going to work out right, but that's okay. So I put 25 and press set on that first string. Then I'll go to string 2. I want to make it 25. String 3. I'll fast forward through this. Awesome. So I've got 25 on each. And so now I can go back here to roof line and I'll go to my first string. And that's 1 through 25. And so then I can go here on the elements side and just go 26, scroll down through 50. Then I can just literally just drag them over. Oops. Had to scroll up first. Drag them over to this first number. Boom. 26 through 50 is patched. Oh, but that was string 1. That was supposed to be 1 through 25. So, oh goodness. So 1 through 25. String 1. Go. String 2. It's really this simple. 26 through 50 now. I just select them over here, drag them. In fact, the first year I did this, and the jury's still out, which is quicker, but I just went ahead and literally just dragged it into each string, did this here instead of doing it in the other window. It doesn't matter which way you do it. So that's good enough for now. So what we're going to do is now, instead of fixing this perfectly for the sake of time, we're going to head over and start sequencing. So it's really as simple as just going File, Save, always save, close. Now we've got our display. Now we'll press OK here and create a new sequence.